We're back at the appointed time. Do we still have Elko on the line?
Present.
And we have Las Vegas and 5 Falconers, is that correct?
It is debilitating.
Excuse me, Chairman, I missed what you said.
We
You
have
were talking here.
5 Falconers in Las Vegas, is that correct?
Yes, I have 5 Falconers. I have 4 of them have filled out speaker cards. The 5th one may or may not speak, but if he does, I'll have him fill out a card for you, sir.
Excellent, and I'm assuming you have a record there to keep track of who's present, right?
Yes, I do, sir.
Excellent. We'll have that for the recording secretary. Let's call this meeting back to order. And let's go on with item number 22, Falconry Regulation Process Update. Chief of Wildlife Diversity, Laura Richards, Informational. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you.
Tell us what's going on with falconry.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, I'm Laura Richards, the Chief of the Wildlife Diversity Division. I'm here to present an informational update on the process and timeline to align the state falconry regulations with federal falconry regulations. As you may be aware, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service revised the federal regulations regarding falconry. NDOW is currently drafting amendment language to Nevada Administrative Code governing the practice of falconry in Nevada. This effort is required to align the state regulations with the revised federal regulations completed in 2008. The states have until 2014 to have their new regulations approved by the Fish and Wildlife Service for the continued licensing of falconry in the state. In Nevada, we have been formatting a set of draft state regulations incorporating this federal text. This formatting was necessary to change the speaker's perspective from federal to state in many instances. It was a significant, necessary task that we needed to perform before we believed we had draft regulation language ready for public review. The first draft is almost completed and will be ready for input from falconers to ensure that the details of the new regulations are both in keeping with the needs of Nevada falconers and the responsible conservation of the falconry resource. We have scheduled our first round of falconers meetings to present the draft regulation language for review and input. We are planning 2 introductory meetings, one here on May 18th in this room from 7 o'clock in the evening. That's May 18th, and then also one in Las Vegas on May 19th, down at our regional office in Las Vegas. We recently sent letters to all licensed falconers inviting them to these meetings, and you have a copy of that letter in front of you. We also can send it out to the different offices that are on this call as well by email, so you'll have a copy of that as well. A copy of the state draft regulation language will be posted on NDOW's website as of May 4th, 2011. We are also accepting written comments from those that are not able to attend any of those public meetings. Following the May scoping meetings, the regulations will be revised based on the feedback we get from falconers and the public. Those revised regulations will be sent to LCB for review and compliance. Once the regulation is approved by LCB, we will submit this regulation for an agenda item for the Commission to approve. This will, of course, allow for further public input. Following the Commission approval, the regulation has to be sent to the Legislative Regulation Committee for approval. We've had discussions with the lead Fish and Wildlife Service administrator of this falconry program, George Allen in DC. He has said that 14 states have gone through this process and have had their regulations approved by the Fish and Wildlife Service. Our goal is to have the final regulations approved and submitted to the Fish and Wildlife Service by fall or early winter if possible. We remain on track to have our state falconry regulations aligned to the new federal regulations well before the 2014 deadline. We also must update our falconry database and the exam for falconers and submit them to the Fish and Wildlife Service. We would greatly appreciate the assistance of the falconry community in developing that new revised exam. We appreciate the input we have received to date. We look forward to working with the falconry community over the next several months as these regulations are revised and finalized. Together, we must ensure that the revised regulations are both in keeping with the needs of Nevada falconers and the responsible conservation of the falconry resource. I can answer any questions.
should be to the commission approximately, what was the timeline there?
We're hoping, following the public scoping meetings and then going to LCB for approval. It's an extensive change on, I think a dozen or so NACs that had to be revised with this federal language inserted into each of those NACs. So they would have a month to review it once we submit it to LCB, and hopefully when we get it back, it has the intent that we wanted. There could be some back and forth with LCB for a short period of time, but hopefully sometime during the fall we'd have those approved regulations back to the commission for.
Okay, and an issue always comes up here with this executive order, and there's a specific exemption that talks about federal regulations, so hopefully we can get that passed through under that. So just when it comes before the commission, we want to make sure we have opportunity to send it to the governor's legal counsel to make sure that it does copy that exemption before it hits. Shouldn't be a problem, but I'm sure you're aware of it, but just throwing that out there. Okay.
Okay, very good.
So that's our timeline, is fall, maybe September,
Well, it's probably
maybe
going to be a
December.
little bit later than that, by the time we finally get it to the commission, depending on LCB review again.
Okay, well, it's in December if it's fall, because that's our
Could be.
commission meeting.
The LCB won't even start looking at regulations again until some period after the session. So they get a lot of cleanup work to do.
But so you're thinking you'll have it to them by September-ish,
To
to LCB?
I think we could probably get it to them by then, yes.
Okay. Just trying to clarify the timeline on things. We had a question from Commissioner Kevin.
So the process then is we have to have all our NACs in order before we submit. What if Fish and Wildlife Service doesn't like it?
Well, we have worked out a discussion with that George Allen that reviews and approves these regulations for all the states, that once we have a draft that we're pretty comfortable with, the falconry community is pretty comfortable with, that he could start looking at
He
those.
can review it.
Yes.
So that we're not.
And that once we do submit our final, it should be approved and it'll have all the correct language in it.
Okay.
All right. Further questions from the commission? Seeing none, we'll move on to, we had a Falconers report. A report will be provided by Corey Dalton on behalf of the Falconers in Nevada concerning falconry regulation, outlining suggestions for the Falconers on state compliance with federal regulation. Welcome back, Corey.
For the record, Corey Dalton, I'm speaking here on behalf of numerous falconers in northern and southern Nevada. And I just wanted to thank the Wildlife Commission for letting us speak before you today, and all the work that the department has really jumped on to get things rolling here with our time constraint. I'll try and be brief. Basically, yeah, Laura is correct with everything she had to say about the timelines and the packets that still have to go to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. The Falconers have kind of very roughly helped speed up the analysis of all the NACs with the federal laws by going through and kind of indicating each NAC and what corresponding things are going to be impacted. That whole process, I imagine, will still be more in-depthly reviewed by the department in the next coming weeks. The department was, it's like Laura said, I'm sorry, I seem to be, because all this stuff is fairly recent as to when I started my whole report. So basically, where we stand at this point is we really look forward to hopefully drafting and help get the NACs ready to go to be sent off, so that the falconers are happy with it, and so that the wildlife department doesn't feel that anything has been taken away from their ability to manage wildlife resources in any way. And that's not the intent of the falconers in any way. We're here to be part of the process and make sure that we try and get through kind of quickly, because we're so small. We really aren't trying to have an impact on staff time or state money or even commission time. So we look forward to meeting with everybody. And just to kind of summarize that, the falconers fundamentally have gone through all of the federal regulations, and there really wasn't a whole lot in there that we saw that the falconers felt in any way would impact the department's ability to manage wildlife resources, or how we practice falconry in the state. And it's kind of nice that the Fish and Wildlife Service also have contingencies in there that allow for like an oops factor, to where if your state screws something up, either one way or the other within the law, they have this nice little statement that allows you to fix things, because they realize that after 17 adoptions now, that they've had a few hiccups of things, and they're kind of learning as they go. And there's also a process in there for falconers. If the state has put something in place that the falconers disagree with, they can actually appeal to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And we basically really look forward to working with the department and see if we can't get everything hammered out in a timely fashion, so that we can get on with our sport and not have to worry too much anymore about these topics. But it's been an interesting trip to get to where we are, and we really hope that everything will come out the other side. And we look forward to seeing the draft of the NACs in the coming weeks, so that we can get along in our process. And with that, I really don't have a whole lot of other information that Laura hasn't already touched on. So
All right, I just have a couple brief items. One is you submitted a bunch of statements and other documentation from falconers, and it looks here like, as far as falconers generally agree with, I mean, all of them basically say they agree with to just do the minimum as in federal regulations, with most of them say 2 changes, a couple changes.
yeah, and these changes are a couple items that George Allen at the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service said are not in the CFR Title 50, Part 21, which deals with migratory bird permits. And basically, there's only 2 areas, he said, that the states should be wary of. The first kind of change to keep an eye on is the fact that having a separate permit for importing or just not even importing, just moving birds in or out of the state, basically creates 2 sets of data of possession. And basically the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service National Database will be the database of record in the event of a legal battle or any sort of criminal activity or anything. So and fundamentally, as long as the import-export type permit is there eventually will be a discrepancy. I can almost guarantee if you start having 2 separate areas of the data, the federal database and the paper one, there's going to become a difference. And I mean, you kind of hope there wouldn't be, but they've already encountered this where there becomes a discrepancy. And the second one is that when non-resident falconers will begin to move into Nevada, when you move into Nevada, you don't have a resident falconry license anymore. So you're backed up by your federal license, but since the feds are getting out of it, he said just make sure that in your NACs you address that a non-resident falconer moving to Nevada will basically have his license honored until he becomes a resident, and then at which time you give them a, whatever it is, 60-day, 90-day grace period to apply for a state falconry license. Because otherwise, if you don't have that in place, when a non-resident moves into the state, since there's no more federal program, legally they have to turn over everything. And so he said just keep an eye on those 2 areas. Those are the 2 biggies that they've encountered with the 17 states that have already adopted the laws. And fundamentally, the falconers that are that have their statements that have written them to me, that are in favor of fundamentally adopting the federal regulations as is, some of them have 50 years experience just with one person, and they all have a lot of experience in a lot of different states at how this has been handled even before there were regulations or laws governing it. And none of them saw anything in there that in any way was going to be harmful or deter the state's ability to manage our sport. And that's why they're basically saying that you should be able to adopt these as is, and if you have an oops, you can fix it. And this will also be the easiest transition of time and money and staff time and state money to keep this as inexpensive as possible, because there's not enough of us to worry about.
Last time you mentioned there was 60.
Yeah, there's between 60 and 70. I don't have an official record. I know a few gentlemen have moved out of the state, and some have moved back in. So it's pretty dynamic, but there's roughly 65 in the whole state, so
Okay.
nothing, no big numbers.
Questions on report? Commissioner Capurro?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Corey, I have to tell you, I'm very impressed with the proactive approach that you folks have taken relative to this issue and the cooperation and collaboration that you've obviously had with the department staff on it. So I wish all of our regulations and regulation processes were as proactive as that is. So again, thanks for being as involved as you folks have been.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunities.
All right. Anything else? And then we'll go on to the next portion, which is the action portion, and we have some public comment on the issue. All right, seeing nothing else?
No.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to Falconry Regulation process. As an action item, Commission may discuss Falconry Regulation, give instruction to staff on development of such regulations. For myself, I'm looking at this, if NDOW's staff and the Falconers can get together and they can come up with a regulation that they are all happy with. I've got this big rubber stamp that'll be stamped so fast that you wouldn't believe it. Just on a personal note from what I've seen. So with that, let's go with public comment on falconry. Down to Las Vegas, what do we have?
I'd like Eric Feltman to step up, and he'll talk to you here for the record.
Hey, I'd just like to reiterate what Corey said, and
Name for the record,
we
please.
want to make this as smooth of a process as we can.
Name for the record, please. Your name?
Oh, my name's Eric Feltman. For the record. For the record. Sorry, first time I've ever done this. Anyway, I just want to, like I said, I want to reiterate, and just go along. We want to make this as smooth a process as we can. We're a small community as far as field sports go. We're really low in numbers, and we don't want to take up any time, or we just want this to go as smooth as possible. And Corey and Laura, I'd just like to thank you guys for your help, and let's just move this along. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
David Canellis.
Yes, David Canellis, for the record. Falconer. I've been practicing falconry for 28 years. I've been a resident here in Nevada for the past 18 years, and I concur with Corey, and the smoothest transition would be to adopt the federal regulations as they are, and we're willing to help and get this done fast with limited financial obligation from NDOW, and get on with our sport and be up. What's that? And the timing issues. The only concern that I have is that if we don't get this to the table, Fish and Wildlife, before a reasonable amount of time, I'm a little worried it's going to cost us a whole another year. It'd be nice to get this moved along so that we can all enjoy the liberties and the new regulations as the other 17 states are currently enjoying. Thank you for your time and all your effort.
Vinny?
Hello, I'm Vinny Macarella. I've been in falconry for over 37 years. I would like to see what Corey proposed today, and my main issue is time is of the essence. This would probably be the best cost effective. The birds taken from the wild, there's no impact on them, and there's no impact on the game we take. It's very relatively small, so the transition would be great if we could speed this up by any way and adopt them as is. Thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate all you commissioners, Corey, and everybody's help.
Thank you.
Alfonso?
Okay, we're done here in Las Vegas. No further public comment.
Thank you, Las Vegas. Elko, do we have a public comment?
No comment, thank you.
All right, we have here. We had one card. Do you want to speak on this, Karen?
No,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. My points have been covered.
Okay, speaker says points have been covered. Any other public comment here in Reno? Seeing no, we'll close the public hearing on this matter. Commissioners, do we have any direction? We need to say anything further?
Tally ho.
Tally ho, was it the instruction? Is that in the form of a motion? Okay. Tally ho would be the general direction. if this continues the way it sounds like it's continuing, we look forward to, just please keep us apprised of when you've got something going to LCB. We'd like to, maybe in September, just as a line item, this is what's going on, this is where we're at, if we don't have it yet, or when we will, or whatever. All right. Thank you very much. Let's see no action on item 22B. We'll move on to 23. Future commission meeting. Oh, 23, yep. Yes, did you have any action?
Are we gonna vote on it?
If you have a motion, we'll vote on it. If you don't have a motion, we're moving on.
I think we need one, do we?
I was looking for, I didn't see any motions.
Move we approve the process, I guess.
Department draw up a regulation.
The drawings up. They're in the process right now.
Yeah.
Hey,
We're good.
Do you think we need a motion?
Chairman Raine?
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Macbeth.
Some of the Falconers are indicating that there's a timeline issue with trying to get things to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service by September 14th, and that would be problematic if we did this on the September meeting. But as I think through this, are we ever going to be able to meet that timeline, given that the department first has to take a whack at it, and then everything has to go to LCB? Can we just have maybe a little bit of discussion on that issue?
All right, we have Laura Richards right back here. She'll tell us all about it.
Yes, Commissioner. Basically, because of the timeline that the Fish and Wildlife Service has, they need about 4 or 5 months once they receive the whole package complete from the states. And so their deadline is September 1st, which, because of our regulations and our restrictions because of the temporary regulations, we cannot meet that September 1st deadline. But we can go ahead and get everything ready to go and submit it to the Fish and Wildlife Service this fall or winter, and then it would be approved the following year. So we'll be approval through the Fish and Wildlife Service would probably be January 1st of 2013, which would be a year before the final deadline. We would have it approved a year before the requirement isn't.
Okay, and that's as fast as we can see it happening?
We can proceed and have it all ready to go and then submit it to the Fish and Wildlife Service, but by the time they actually approve it, put it in the Federal Register, they do that all at one time, and that's like January. So.
Okay. That's fast we can do. And just a question, will that have any negative effects on the falconry people? I mean, I don't see any, but I'm just throwing out there.
The existing NACs would be in effect until it's on the Federal Register and approved by the Fish and Wildlife Service.
Okay. Does that, do you have any further questions from Las Vegas before she leaves away?
I guess the only thing, could we identify what the issue would be if it's going to be that kind of a delay? My recollection of reading the materials from the Falconers was it the issue on the bringing the birds, transferring the birds in and out? I mean, is there any way that we can maybe do something in the interim? Maybe an amendment to the regulations as is that would solve any problems between now and 2013.
We had this discussion with Rob Bonamici. He's part of the team that's pulling these regulations together, law enforcement as well as the license office, Maureen Hulliger. And we think the existing regulations allow for resident, new people come to the state and be able to bring their birds. They wouldn't be able to hunt with those birds until they have the residency to have a hunting license, but they would be able to bring them into the state without any issues. So.
And so we don't issue non-resident falconry licenses. I'm not a falconer,
correct.
so
That's correct. And we can certainly discuss this in detail at those workshops, and Rob will be at those.
Okay, if there's anything we can do to accommodate this sportsman's group, I'd certainly like to see it.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, nothing further from anybody on the phone? Anything further? Commissioner Capurro?
Yes, Director Mayor, would it be possible for us to receive for the next meeting, which is the bag limit meeting, the data regarding the population figures for each unit, for each type of hunt that we have, and the harvest data for each of those units for the last at least 5 years, if not 10.
We'll do our best. The primary thing is to get through the quota setting process. That's number one. If we have time to do that, we'll certainly try to.
The reason I ask for it is so that we can use that in our deliberations relative to those issues that we'll be addressing.
So what was it again you wanted?
The population figures for each hunt unit for the last 10 years, if possible, if not at least 5, and the harvest data for each hunt unit for each species that we have.
Wouldn't it be easier to have them on a graph so you can see?
It would be easier if we had a graph that we could look at
Well, we'll do our
to see what the.
We'll do our best. It's a Herculean task to get all together. Some of the stuff is part and parcel of the thing,
hunt
but I don't want
book.
to take Mike Cox off of what he's doing to do this, but I will certainly try to.
Part of it, I assume, would come with the hunt book in any
Yes.
event, wouldn't it? So,
Clarify them.
and when do you anticipate, how soon before that meeting do you anticipate we'll get the hunt book?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
All right, let me clarify one thing. We hadn't formally moved us on past 22B. I just want to make sure there was no motion to 22B. So we're now on, seeing none, we're now on 23, which is where we're at. And that was the question. We don't know when we're going to get the hunt book. A few days, week, next.
I have no idea.
Done now? No.
They're working on it.
Okay, Commissioner Howell, then Vice Chairman Lent.
Thank you. Deputy Director Haskins, I have a question. In the past month, there's been dialogue between you and the Vice Chair concerning credentials of employees, and I understand that you cannot name specific names. I understand that. Could you just tell for the record how many PhDs we do have on staff?
You had a veterinarian or two at least.
Well, yeah, there's at least 2. I don't know, we'll be taking it off the top of our head. I think there's 2, but why don't we can kind of get an estimate of how many people have masters and PhDs, and then provide that to you in a net.
Was one the answer? I didn't hear.
2.
We have 2?
I believe.
I have a
But I need to go
bachelor's-
back to the field, folks. I mean, just, that would be a quick blush off the top of our heads, but.
All right, for the record, I have Bachelor of Science in Business Administration with a major in management. Okay. Now, just want to throw that out for the record. I know some of those communications that speaking about, hey, voluntarily, I understand maybe there's some rules or whatnot, but voluntarily people could go ahead and say that. If, just to clear the air on this issue, that would be nice if perhaps could ask, hey, we voluntarily throw your title up. The issue is, I didn't define it. It was defined in these emails. All right. What are the qualifications? What you stated? I didn't write the bloody stuff. I just read a little of the
No, I've been in correspondence, I didn't bring it up, with Deputy Director Haskins. I wanted to know the degrees and where they got them of their people in the Game Bureau. It's real simple. And if I had everyone PhDs, I'd be proud to say they all got PhDs. And where they got them, because they got them from Phoenix University, it'd be nice to know that.
What is the underlying issue? Why do you need to know what their degrees are?
I just asked a question, just for public information, I guess,
Raine, again, I was asked this info, and you may or may not have received the email that Rich sent. This information is protected. It's confidential under NAC 284 something. If there is any issue with the qualifications, that's certainly something we need to resolve, but we cannot disclose that kind of information.
No,
They could voluntarily.
Yes.
We
If
can't
you would
mandate.
like to send a request to those individuals that, for whom you're seeking the information, you are more than welcome to do that.
Can you give me a list of your biologists then?
Well, my request to you was to send that request to me, but I can guarantee you they're going to ask you, why do you want to know? What's the question? You
We'll
know,
find
and
out.
They'll be happy
We'll
to.
find out, don't worry about it.
You know, to my understanding, this came up in the last meeting when the acting director mentioned that, you know, hey, we're the biologists, these other guys aren't biologists, and they're all biologists, they all have degrees. I asked a couple of them, they start spouting out more pieces of paper than I can read with more letters on them than are ridiculous. But, I mean, that's kind of what I think originally started it, and then the questions come out, and you get bet as well, what are the qualifications of all these people? I don't know. I can tell you mine, and that's where I already did that public. Okay, next.
Right, and again, if the issue is whether some of the NDOW individuals are qualified for their positions, obviously that information wouldn't really answer that question. So if that is the issue, that's something that needs to be addressed and agendized properly, not just, where'd you get your degrees and when did you get them?
Good point by our legal staff here on my left. Okay, this is the future commission meeting. Thank you. All right, let's go on with, so what do we want on the future commission meeting? Okay.
I got, it looks like the next meeting is
Right over here.
two things that I know. We set quotas and we do
Slap
the
me around.
heritage. Now, on the heritage, I'm gonna set a meeting up and have a day and a half on the heritage, because we cannot have a heritage meeting till the day before the commission. And if you're gonna have a 2.5 day commission meeting, I need to know so I can set the heritage up in conjunction with it, because we have so much information to go through. I would just like to make a request of staff here, that we do get the hunt books, the recommendation as soon as possible, because we get them dumped. I mean, I've got enough stuff to do with the heritage, and we're gonna get them dumped on everybody, but we need those books as soon as possible on the recommendation so we can digest it. And I like the idea of getting populations in all the management units for the past 5 or 10 years and the harvest on a graph, because that's gonna help me anyway, take a look at what the recommendations, to put them together. So I'd like to get those at the same time, and the sooner the better, because it's a complicated process, and we've got heritage, and that's a complicated process. So we can't get them dumped on us the week before and expect us to do any justice to them.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm hearing this talk of a 2.5 day meeting. Where are we going with that?
We're just trying to figure out right now, and is just, how much time are we gonna need? We're gonna need, let's see, Saturday, we're gonna have, should be the day we'll have quotas for Saturday, and maybe the final action items on these couple policies that came up. That'll blow all of Saturday. What else is necessary? We're gonna need a significant length time for heritage. I don't know exactly how long, but that's gonna take up quite a bit of time. And then all any other items we have are gonna have to be, will everything else fit one day? It's a question. Will heritage and everything else fit in Friday? If it doesn't, then it might squeeze over into the afternoon of the previous day. How else are we gonna do it? That's the question. Right now, we're kind of trying to determine that. Hopefully we get it in 2, but do we need more than that? What do we have?
Chairman Raine, I have two problems for you. One, in it, I don't believe we can do heritage in one day. Okay? The other problem is, since for people out of town, Saturday time is limited because we have people who have to get on airplanes to go back out of town. So we have a time constraint here. And we have to think about that. And also for the people who are traveling, we need to get all the emails and support material and everything we need prior to 24 hours before meetings start.
Yeah.
Because some of us miss things when we're traveling, and we can't present a decent argument to whatever's coming up without studying the background and the information. It's not fair to the people who have problems and subjects and things like that. It's not fair to them who bring things before the commission. but treat them fairly. We should have time to study all the aspects. You can't do that if you get it the night before the meeting.
So your suggestions are, what do we want to do? We want to have, well, and see, last couple years, we're talking at least 6 hours for this Heritage Committee meeting, and there was a whole lot less items.
We got 42
It's
projects
almost
or so.
double, or close to double the number of projects. So that's at least a day and a half
Yes.
there. Anyway, okay. So if we're talking, so for commission items, are we going to need, since we strictly limit Saturday as much as we can to maybe a couple policy things, because we have to have that on 2 days, and then quotas, that'd be all Saturday. Was there going to be appeals or anything going on, petitions? Okay, so we have a petition for Friday.
Well, that could take a long time.
Yes.
Do we have to hear it?
Do we have to hear that then, or could that be put off in June? You said there was a petition?
We got it as the petition from Chris Schwab, but we're waiting for Brian Stockton
Yeah.
to return.
We'll be going to looking at a full schedule, even considering heritage, because if Trail Safe.
Hey, you want to get closer?
Excuse me, if Trail Safe comes back before us, she'll be bringing a support group with her, and there'll have to be time for public input, and we have watched these things extend through the course of the day and push everything, and we don't want to try to do justice to everyone on Saturday people who have items before us. Because it always comes down to that. We're trying to jam everything into Saturday and Saturday afternoon, and some people are going to get cheated because we have a time that we have to get people out onto airplanes. So to be fair to everybody, let's give us more time up front. So when we run into problems, we have them covered.
And worst case, and then if we are a little slack, we could get out early Saturday.
Absolutely, and we never get out early on Saturday.
Okay, Commissioner Capurro, look at the clock, yes.
Mr. Chairman, then are we talking about all day Thursday, Friday, and Saturday?
We're talking about committee meeting Wednesday and Thursday
I was
morning?
thinking of a committee meeting, and I'm going to tell all the cabs, you better come to the committee meeting, because that's where we're going to have the most time. We're going to have more time there than we are in the department. But I was thinking of a half a day Wednesday and all day Thursday.
At minimum, yes.
And then
committee meeting.
Or all day Wednesday and a half day Thursday. If you're going to start the commission meeting a half day Thursday, then I've got to go all day Wednesday on Heritage. And
Mr.
a half
Chairman.
a day Thursday.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Just to remind you, there are no dollars for the commission. You've overspent your budget at this point, okay?
The budget that was not submitted correctly.
It's zero out. It's zeroed out, okay?
Cancel.
Your expenses far exceeded your allotment. On Monday morning, we have to go to IFC, and we have a work plan that we've submitted to ask for more authority for the budget. And so I guess at this point, you're going to need to see what IFC authorizes as far as dollars. Now, I don't know what that answer is going to be. We're in a legislative session that is taking money from children for education. I have no idea what this is going to be like on Monday. But the work plan has been submitted to request dollars to fund the May meeting and the June meeting, but we're going to need to probably wait to figure out what it is we're going to be able to afford based on what's given to us at IFC.
If we don't get any money, we don't have a meeting, is that right?
That very well could be. Now, I'm going to argue that we have to have May. You have to have quotas. I mean, you got to have quotas. So there's going to have to be some amount of money, and you got to have, there's a lot of business to be done. And so, and that's in our justification. But, I don't know what, every time I go to those things, doesn't necessarily turn out the way we think it's going to turn out.
We much have to have June too, don't we?
Yeah.
In June, there's only 3 issues that have to be, there are the duck stamp projects, the upland game projects, as well as the upland game season. But the upland game season is already set through 2012.
Okay, that's right.
Okay, so that could be rolled into to May possibly. I don't know, but so we've submitted the full Monte it'll be up to IFC and how they're feeling on Monday.
Question from Las Vegas.
Go ahead.
What would be the issue of moving the Heritage project considerations to the June meeting?
The statute says we do them the April 5th, the first meeting after the April meeting. By statute says that's when we do the Heritage project. It's in the statute.
And then if we wait till June, I mean, we've got to get those projects, whatever they are, on the road, because the end of June, there'll be a few days before the funding should theoretically be available. I mean, a week.
I'll talk to the secretary here. I talked to, as far as the Heritage, when I talked to Patrick Cates on that, he suggested we have them the day before or day and a half, and I don't know how we can cover 42 projects with any detail, but if we don't have the time to cover them, we won't have a committee meeting, and we'll just make recommendations to the commission then, if we don't have any money for any meeting for the committee, so it'll take a little more time for the commission, but I was gonna have it the day before to back up to the commission to save expenses. We've got commissioners, and that's not something we do with a telephone, to have those Heritage projects over the telephone. It's just not acceptable. So we're gonna have the commissioners up here anyway. We just bring them up a day early, or a day and a half early, according to Patrick Cates, and he said that'd probably be the best. So I sent a letter to him requesting we have a meeting the end of April, and he said no. So I wanted to get him out to the cabs earlier and have a meeting in April, so we get him to the cabs earlier, and he said no, and so that's why we're doing that, and I don't know if that's still a go or not. I guess
it all depends on what's approved at IFC. Yeah. So once we know what's approved at IFC, then we need to go back and figure out how much money we have, and whether we can just have a 3-day meeting in May, a Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I don't know. We'll have to. We have an idea what it costs us to have a meeting. So.
But basically, what you're saying, though, is if we have a 3-day meeting in May, if they gave us the full allotment that you've requested, we'd have a 3-day meeting in May, but probably only a 1-day meeting in June.
Yeah, or it's some combination thereof. I mean,
personally, I think we should stick with the 2-day meeting in May. It's a grueling meeting. We've all been through them, but
well, if we can get it done in 2 days, it's the question.
We're just going to have to keep it moving. I mean, let's stick to the Heritage projects, and on Friday, and season Heritage projects, whatever this petition might be, and stick to that. And we don't have any other critical business. Heritage projects are critical. Petitions are critical because that's based in NRS, and season setting is critical. So if we get those 3 things in our 2 days, anything else is gravy.
I don't know what that petition is. That may be a legal deal. I don't know anything about it, but I hope that doesn't.
And if that's an issue, maybe we can put that on till June if it's interrupting with, I mean, we got to hear it, whatever it is. We'll have to see what legal says about it. Okay, we had it. Go ahead.
Okay, we have, the June meeting was scheduled originally for Eureka.
Yeah.
And that's been changed now?
No.
Still in Eureka?
No.
I thought, but he did say we could save money by going
here.
You can go elsewhere.
Here. The point is that if we have any regulatory issues that we have to deal with, or ones where we have the reading on the first day and then adoption on the second, you have a 1-day meeting, you can't do that.
Right.
Yeah.
So we almost have to have a 2-day meeting, and maybe we can spread some stuff from May into June, but I don't, on the petition, who knows? That may be time sensitive too, as far as, from what I understand, it might be.
And there's always an option of a 1.5-day meeting too, if that would work. Possibly travel the day up. There's options for June, I suppose. But a lot of it's going to depend on as well as whether or not we have any appeals or something comes up here in the next week or so.
Well, those appeals would have to be put off, if nothing else.
We got 30 days to answer them.
That doesn't mean you have to hear them in 30 days, does it?
How are you going to answer them if you don't hear them?
Set them for hearing at a later date, as long as you respond to them on it.
It just tells us that we have another committee meeting that obviously needs to happen, meaning the Finance Committee meeting, to go over how we got into this nightmare and hopefully show a road out. But that's not...
The finance meeting's a nightmare.
We're 3 meetings shy on funding, and we've spent very little on committees or anything else compared to a lot of previous years as far as
and the
numbers
cabs
of
always
meetings.
get enhancement.
No, we can show you exactly why you're in the situation.
We've gone over it, and then the best place to have that discussed is in a finance committee meeting. That's why we've got the finance committee to discuss that and go over that, and we sure isn't on item number 23. I'm probably about to get slapped from the guy on my left. So, which would be appreciated at this point because we need to move on to item number 24. So, we've got that currently scheduled. We'll have that, see what items we've got, and item number 24. Item number 24?
Mr. Chairman, where's number 24 first, but still on 23, just real quick. Since we're talking about the heritage stuff, is there any way we can get kind of a synopsis of what happened with the last heritage projects and how far along what we've accomplished with some of these?
That's what the committee meeting...
And how much money we've spent versus what we've got in return?
That's what's been requested by, I know I've seen that has been requested by the committee chair.
I requested that, and the response I got from Deputy Director Cates was he would get a hold of the staff person and see if it's available, but he wasn't sure we're going to have that available.
Okay, well, we've got a lot of similar projects that we're going to be looking at again, and I want to know if we've got anything from the first time.
I agree, and basically the policy says that if people don't complete their project, keep their word for it, then we don't have to award them a new project. Okay. So I want to make sure they did it, complete their projects, but then we have till July the 1 to do it. But I want to get an up-to-date on all the project completion, and I sent an email to that effect, and I'm not sure we're going to get those.
We're really getting off the item number 23 at this point. We're straying largely. So.
You ready for a motion?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that we need to have a finance committee meeting, talk about the money. We need to have heritage meeting to talk about all the heritage stuff we're just talking about, and it sure isn't on number 23.
I'd make a motion that we meet May 13th and 14th as stated in our agenda.
At the call of the chair.
Unless there's something, I mean...
Second.
Commission.
And you understand that the Heritage Committee would have to meet prior to that?
Correct. That's another issue.
There's another issue.
It's still money.
Anyways, we'll have to, we'll have to see what this meeting is. There is that was a motion and a second to restrict or place or however you want to put it. How did you state that?
Do we hold our commission meeting on May 13th and 14th?
We have the commission meeting on May 13th and May 14th as scheduled.
I'd like to
Yes.
ask Mr. Cates, who is the money guy, perhaps he's got something he can help us with as far as our
Scheduling? Okay, as long as we're talking about scheduling, we're good.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about scheduling.
What can we schedule?
What can we schedule? That's, as long as we keep it onto that, because that's on the agenda. I don't want to get hurt over here.
That's a hard one. That's not the question I wanted to answer.
There's lots of committee meetings. There's lots of committee meetings.
There was no second, motion died.
We have a work program pending IFC on Monday, which if that is approved, that should give us funding for the May and June meetings. And it looks like that would be sufficient to cover the full cost of those meetings.
Committee meetings and such as well?
Yes, but you certainly could keep the cost down, through a lot of the things that you guys talked about. You could combine May and June, maybe extend it out. It's the actual travel, the airlines and the mileage that really adds up in the travel costs. Staying over another day doesn't add as much to the cost of the travel. So that's something you may want to consider.
If it would help, because currently we have it scheduled in June in Eureka. And I think you said it would be better if we scheduled it for here, right?
It is less expensive, yes.
We can do that.
Because you have 3 members who are local, whether you do it here or in Vegas, whereas Eureka, unfortunately, only have 1 member who's local.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's
a couple people.
Yes, so I'm just talking numbers. So.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
I'm going with what we set up a couple of years ago, but anyways.
Mr. Patrick.
Yes.
Do we get an answer Monday?
Yes.
Okay.
It'll be approved in the morning, assuming they don't have any questions or mess
We
with
need
it.
to know that right away.
Sure.
Could you let the chairman know?
They did have a second.
Yes.
They did have a second.
I'll do that tomorrow. They meet in the morning. I should know by lunch.
Okay, so we had a motion, a second on the floor. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make an amendment to that motion that we not decide on the exact days till Monday, and it'll be at your call if we get the money. If we got to go to 2.5 days instead of locking ourselves in, and if we get the money, then and we can show we can go 2.5 days to be on the safe side. I think we ought to do it like testified here with Patrick Case said. It's not the one extra day that really adds up the cost. It's a travel. So I've got a long committee meeting, and I'd rather have the commissioners up a day early to do mine if we can do it. I've already emailed him, and I'd like to do it. So I'd like to amend it to say that we're going to leave the dates of the commission up to, won't decide them till Monday, and then you can notify everybody. Can we do that?
If that's a form of an amendment to the motion, amending the main motion to state that I think it was, while in concept 14 and 14 is fine, we might have to extend it an extra half day, therefore we'll leave up the final determination to the chair. And that will be decided next week. Chairman, and that will be decided next week.
Correct.
Everybody understand the amendment to the motion? Then we'll vote on the main motion. All in favor of the amendment to the motion signify by stating aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, so we have
2 days is enough.
5 in favor, 2 opposed. Commissioner Wallace, Commissioner Kevin. Back to the main motion. Everybody understand the main motion?
As amended.
As amended, as currently amended. All in favor of the main motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, item number 24.
Move adjourn.
Stand adjourned.
Isn't that okay?
That's the one that's not on the agenda for the,
I want to have a 5-day meeting.
do I have 6?
You're retired, so.